Life wisdom. What are the most fattening, unhealthy, and sneaky foods out there that are contributing to obesity and bad health? In this video, I'm going to count down the top 10 obesity-causing foods, but I want to start out with a vote. Which is your favorite? Sweet, salty, meat, carbs, or coffee? Let me know which one you find yourself craving most often. Throughout this video, if you see a video appear next to me, it's because that video delves more deeply into whichever topic I'm discussing. So these videos, for instance, give simple guidelines on how to eat a healthy and weight-conscious diet. And when you click on one of those videos, it'll open up in a new tab so you can continue watching this video and then check that one out later. For every evil but scrumptious junk food out there, there's another food right next to it that claims to be fat-free, or the diet version, or the sugar-free version of that other food. But these are not foods that are going to help you lose weight. Number one, these are still processed foods that are loaded with empty calories. And number two, if, for instance, it says it's the sugar-free version, then they've replaced that sugar with fat. And if it's the fat-free version, then they've replaced that fat with sugar. Oftentimes, the diet or fat-free version of the other food is going to be even more harmful than the original food it's trying to replace. Diet Coke, for instance, actually contains more caffeine than regular Coke, which I think is one reason why people get so addicted to it. And many foods that are sugar-free often contain artificial sweeteners like aspartame, which is actually known to be neurotoxic. So don't let them play this Jedi mind trick on you. You're smarter than that. Recognize that if it's a junk food and there happens to be one that says diet or fat-free or whatever, it's still a junk food, it's still an obesity-causing food, it's still a food that you want to avoid. Hungry? Why wait? Now, I like Snickers bars, but they really kind of ticked me off with this ad campaign. Telling a hungry person to reach for a candy bar is just plain cruel. Not only have they then shoveled in tons of sugar, tons of empty calories that are going to turn straight into fat, but they're also going to be feeling even more hungry shortly after eating it. So every time we eat food, we add sugar to our blood. And when we eat a lot of sugar and add a lot of sugar to our blood all at once, we get a blood sugar spike. So when we are putting sugar into our blood by eating a food, insulin is released, and insulin is a fat storage hormone. So every time I say the words blood sugar spike, you can just equate that with storing fat. And then another thing about the blood sugar spike is that as it falls and gets lower, it's going to result in more hunger again. So you're going to be feeling hungry, you're going to be feeling moody even, as soon as that blood sugar spike kind of starts moving down. So if we want to satisfy a sweet tooth, for chocolate, I like to eat dark chocolate. It usually has a lot less sugar in it, and with just a couple of bites, you can satisfy that craving for chocolate. And if you're having a craving for a tangy candy, then I would recommend that you actually reach for a fruit. The foods that those candies are often chemically altered to taste like. When you're eating a fruit contains a lot of fiber. So even though there is sugar in the fruit, the fiber in that fruit helps to kind of mellow out the effect on your blood sugar. So rather than getting a really intense blood sugar spike like you just ate a teaspoon of sugar, it's a little more leveled out. So it's going to sustain you for longer, keeping you fuller longer, and it's not going to result in you feeling hungrier and feeling even moody shortly after eating it. And if you're hungry, I would recommend that you don't reach for something sweet. Reach for a snack like nuts or trail mix, or just go ahead and eat a meal. Americans consume more than 1 billion pounds of beef every year, and that's just at the McDonald's alone. I've talked before about the dangers of processed meats, but they are also an obesity-causing food. You should recognize that most conventionally farmed animals are purposefully fattened up with a grain diet. And when we eat those really fatty animals, guess what? That's an obesity-causing food for us too. And it's also important to realize that many of the processed meats that we find, either the processed deli meats, hot dogs, sausages, these are really high contents of fat, and they also contain a whole host of other chemicals as well, things that we really want to be avoiding. So I'm not going to tell you to not eat meat, even though I don't eat meat, but what I will tell you is that if you're going to eat meat, and this would include dairy products, you want to look for the words grass-fed or pasture-raised. And what that means is that that animal had a diet, its natural diet of eating grass, of eating the greens that it's supposed to eat. And so the result is that that animal is a lot leaner, and its meat is going to be leaner as well. So not only is it going to be more healthful to eat grass-fed meat, but it's also going to be a lot less fattening. White, refined, bleached, unbleached, and especially enriched flour products. These you will find in most of your conventional baked goods like bread, pasta, cookies, cakes, etc. The first offense of white bread is that these are empty calories. And what that means is that all of the nutrients and the fiber have been stripped out of the food, leaving you the refined white flour product. Empty calories, though the name is a little deceiving, are still calories that are going to turn into fat in all of your least favorite places. But because they don't contain fiber and they don't contain nutrients, they're not going to keep you feeling full and satisfied, and they can even end up making you feel more hungry sooner. White bread's second offense is loads of sugar. In the video, The Truth About Carbohydrates, I explain that eating white refined flour products is going to spike our blood sugar just as much as eating a spoonful of sugar. So if we're trying to lose weight, we need to look at those white flour products and recognize that they contribute immensely to weight gain. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to completely give up your cakes and breads and cookies and whatever it may be. You just want to look on the label for the words 100% whole wheat or sprouted grains. And in my video, What Not to Eat, I explain that we can simply replace unhealthy ingredients like white refined flour with a more healthful one like whole wheat or sprouted grain flour. It's also important to remember that some people are completely allergic to wheat and gluten, and you want to keep that in mind as you're figuring out if you want to eat these foods or not. All right, you're not stupid. You know that fried foods are fattening and really not good for you, but just how bad are they? Most fried foods are battered, right? So they're actually taking that refined white flour that I talked about a little while ago, and then adding a whole bunch of oils to it. Most of these oils are actually rancid at the time that they're used. They're either genetically modified or partially hydrogenated. Just in general, the fats and oils used in pretty much all junk foods and processed foods are really low quality to begin with. And then when you combine them with a carbohydrate, you're really adding insult to injury when it comes to weight gain. We described this in more detail in the video, Why Fast Food Makes You Fat. It's also important to realize that cooking at extremely high heats also creates chemicals in and of itself. One is acrylamide, and it's actually indexed as a probable human carcinogen. It has been known to cause tumors in rats. And acrylamide is formed whenever you bring up foods to a really high temperature. So frying foods and even barbecuing foods is going to result in these harmful chemicals. So I recommend always baking or cooking at low heats, steaming, and avoiding these fried and barbecued foods as much as you can. I hate to break it to you, I really do. But no matter what your box of processed cereal claims, this is still an obesity-causing food. And it's not very healthy either. Even though the packaging of many processed cereals will say contains whole grains or now contains fiber, most of these cereals are still made with the refined white flour that I was discussing in the last tip. And they're also loaded with tons of sugar, artificial colors, artificial flavors, preservatives, and a whole host of other additives. If you want to learn more about the dangers of food chemicals, you can watch my video, Are Food Chemicals Killing You? A better bet is going to be getting a variety of different natural grains. And in the video, The Truth About Grains and Gluten, we discuss some of those good alternatives to your processed cereals and other processed wheat products. Millet, barley, brown rice are all great examples. Also, the seed quinoa is another great thing that I love to enjoy for breakfast. Then you can sweeten them with apples, blueberries, honey, raisins, you name it, and create a healthy breakfast that's going to sustain you longer, keeping you full longer, and keeping you healthier. Now, I know I already ragged on fried foods, but French fries and potato chips really deserve their own category. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're adding insult to injury when we take a high-carb food like a potato and then pair it with fats, which is what we're doing every time we make French fries or have potato chips. So these are tons of empty calories with no fiber, no nutrition in them. And they are also going to spike your blood sugar because of that high carbohydrate content. But I want to offer you some good alternatives because all of us have salt cravings. Salt is an important nutrient, and that's why we crave it so often. So the key is to have a high quality salt. I recommend a sea salt like Himalayan pink salt, or really any kind of sea salt that you can find in your health food store. When you're eating a sea salt, it contains 84 different minerals, it contains trace elements, it also contains electrolytes. So it's going to not only satisfy your salt craving, but it actually offers you health benefits, whereas the normal iodized refined salt that we're usually eating actually contributes no health benefits. And you can make your own chips out of just about anything, and you can bake them. So you could take sweet potato, zucchini, or even a regular potato. You can also take kale, for instance. I like to coat them in coconut oil and then bake them at around 375 or 325 degrees for just a little while. And you're going to get a nice, salty, crispy snack that is going to be a lot healthier than your standard French fries or bag of potato chips, which are often loaded with other chemicals as well. One of those little cinnamon scones at Starbucks contains 480 calories. And I just want to point out that that's about the same as a quarter pounder with cheese from McDonald's. When we're eating these confectionery delights, pastries, donuts, they're combining that white refined flour that I've already harped on with a whole bunch of sugar, and in some cases, like with donuts, they're actually then deep fried. So if you're somebody who finds yourself reaching for these sweet, high-carb snacks, my recommendation is to start making them yourself in your own kitchen. Because not only are you able to control what you put in them, you know they're not going to contain any weird preservatives or any weird chemicals that any one of those packaged Little Debbie snacks or Twinkies are going to contain. So one of my favorite things is to bake my own banana nut bread. And so the first thing you can do is to use a whole wheat flour or to use a sprouted grain flour. And if you're gluten-free, you can actually bake with garbanzo flour, tapioca flour, or brown rice flour. And that's going to save you all of the negative health implications associated with the white refined flour. And then my other favorite thing I like to do is to sweeten those foods with honey instead of refined sugar. And you'll find that while you can, really be addicted to that refined sugar flavor, if you just keep at it, if you just keep integrating these other sweeteners in as a replacement, over time your tastes will change. And after a while, that refined sugar taste is not even going to appeal to you anymore. So sweetening with honey or even with maple syrup, these are foods that if you buy a high quality version of them are actually going to provide some health benefits to you, whereas refined sugar has a whole host of negative health implications associated with it. Creamy coffee, frappa, mocha, latte, hoo-ha drinks. People drink a lot of coffee. $11 billion worth of coffee just last year and just at the Starbucks. Now, caffeine has its own negative health effects on its own, but caffeine has also been shown to help some people with weight loss. So drinking just black coffee is not included in my obesity-causing foods. But what is when you start combining that coffee with cream and with sugar, especially when you combine it with a whole lot of cream and sugar. It's also important to realize that these are empty calories, which means there's no fiber, there's no nutrients, you're really not getting anything positive out of it, but all of those calories are just going straight to your thighs. So what I recommend is to satisfy your caffeine craving with just caffeine, with just a cup of coffee, and satisfy your sugar craving with something sweet. But try to break the habit of constantly drinking things that combine the caffeine with the cream and sugar and fattening foods. Now, soda pop is not even a food, but it is the #1 most sold item in grocery stores, and it is a huge contributing factor to obesity, so that's why it's on my list. It's important for you to realize that the calories we drink may be the most stealthy obesity-causing calories that we consume. Because usually we're just sipping that soda throughout the day, or we're sipping that soda while we eat a really high-calorie meal along with it. And not only is this really horrific for our teeth and is rotting our teeth every time we drink soda, but it's also contributing to obesity and diabetes. So I recommend that you at least significantly cut back on soda, if not just completely give it up altogether. I've known several people who just from giving up soda alone, only change to their diet is giving up soda, they're able to lose 10 pounds or 20 pounds. It's kind of insane. And I also want to emphasize that Diet Coke is not a good alternative. As I already addressed a couple slides back, Diet Coke actually contains more caffeine and is actually going to be more addictive than regular Coke. So I recommend just completely turn your back on those carbonated soda beverages and enjoy an alternative like carbonated water, or one thing I like to do is actually add berries or pieces of fruit into my water to kind of make it sweeter. But if you can eliminate the sodas from your diet, it is going to do a huge benefit to your waistline. In a future video, I'm going to discuss the top 10 worst things we could order at Starbucks. Now, normally we wouldn't think of Starbucks as the worst offender, but you just might be surprised. There is a lot of conflicting information out there about nutrition. One week this food is healthy, the next week it isn't healthy. One person tells you to eat it and another person tells you not to eat it. So in a future video, I'm going to talk about why nutrition information is so confusing and try to give you some simple tips to make it a lot less confusing. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you found it helpful, and I hope that you will leave me a comment letting me know which is your favorite. Be sure to subscribe to the Psychetruth channel so you can see all of our future videos, and be sure to friend us on the Facebook. Thanks so much for watching. To see the video explaining the truth about carbohydrates and why they are obesity-causing foods, check out the video, The Truth About Carbohydrates. We all know that we shouldn't eat fast food, but if you want to learn why fast food is just so fattening, check out the video, Why Fast Food Makes Us Fat. For some really basic guidelines on how to eat a healthy and weight-conscious diet, check out my video, The Easiest Diet Ever. The term empty calories can be pretty misleading, but if you can understand which foods are empty calories and why you want to avoid them, you can not only control hunger, but you can also lose weight. check out my video.